صلاة ربي وسلامه ورحمته وبركاته على رسوله الأمين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, we continue 6:52 p.m. Wednesday, November the 20th, 2019. Well, it's the 20th of November already. Wow. Which is now on the night of this Layla al-Mubarakah, inshallah. Rabi' al-Awwal, or we're still in the month of Rabi' al-Awwal, the 24th night of Rabi' al-Awwal, the year 1441, after the migration of our Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. As we continue in Kitaab At-Tawheed, Bab ma ja'a fi at-Tatayyur, the chapter which comes in evil omens. As we continue of where we stopped at the hadith of Anas ibn Malik, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا عدوى ولا طيرة ويعجبني الفأل قالوا وما الفأل قال الكلمة الطيبة. On the authority of Anas ibn Malik, that the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم, that he said there is no contagious disease or there's no contagious sickness or transmitted sickness, and there's no evil omens. However, I like al-fa'l. They said, what is al-fa'l, O Messenger of Allah? He said, a pleasant word. He said a pleasant word. This is the hadith where we stopped at last class. And we were discussing the meaning of when the Messenger of Allah in this narration said, La adwa, there's no contagious sickness. We said that the meaning of it is what, everyone? They said that the meaning of it is that there's no transmittive or contagious sickness that affects in its nature or by its nature, meaning itself, meaning that is transmitted by the permission of Allah Ta'ala. It's transmitted by the permission of Allah and by His will Ta'ala. So the narration here is not actually negating contagious sicknesses. However, that the sicknesses only affect if it's by the will of Allah Ta'ala, and if Allah wills, that it moves from one individual to another, and if the iman, especially if the iman of the servant is weak. The iman of the servant is weak, and to the point where he becomes paranoid, of course, and it reaches that level. And you'll find, like we said, ya ma'ashal ikhwa, that person, no doubt, could be affected, where the sickness will be transmitted or moved to him or her. So the narration here, like we said, number one, as we said last class, the meaning of the hadith, there's no contagious sickness. The Prophet ﷺ here was refuting a type of falsehood. What was the falsehood? Meaning the mu'taqad, or the conviction or the belief of the people of Jahiliyyah. The conviction or the belief of the people of Jahiliyyah is that sicknesses affect in its nature or by its nature or itself. Meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no power over these sicknesses from being transmitted. So the Prophet ﷺ was refuting this type of ideology or this type of way of thinking, which was the way or the belief of the pagans, or the people of shirk, the people of polytheism. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So the Prophet ﷺ was rebuttaling what, everyone? A belief of Jahiliyyah, that these sicknesses, that they affect by itself, and they do not move or they do not have any effect by the will of Allah. Rather, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no will over all these affairs. He has no will over all these affairs at all. That was their belief. But we know ultimately that sicknesses do not affect anyone except by what, everyone? Except by the permission of Allah and Allah's will. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So that's the meaning of the hadith. That's the meaning of the hadith. The Prophet ﷺ was rebuttaling a jahili mu'taqad, or a belief or conviction that was evil before Islam. That the pagans used to believe, and they adopted, and they used to believe that these sicknesses move or they're transmitted by itself. So we said that the Messenger of Allah was refuting their belief system. And the Prophet ﷺ was teaching the correct belief, which is that one's reliance is upon Allah. And he depends upon Allah. And his heart is connected with Allah. Whereas if his conviction is strong, that he knows and believes without a shadow of a doubt that none of these affairs of harm will take place except by Allah's permission. And if Allah willed it to happen, it's due to some wisdom. And if Allah allowed it to happen, it's due to some wisdom that Allah knows we do not know. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Is it clear what I'm saying or not? So that's what we said concisely to summarize what we mentioned. What preceded from the last class is what we mentioned. Right, everyone? This is what we mentioned. طيب. So the Prophet ﷺ, I ask again in this question, is the Messenger of Allah negating contagious sicknesses? Is that the meaning of the hadith? No. So if you want to summarize it, say that when the Messenger of Allah said La adwa, he's refuting the belief of the people of Jahiliyyah. Notice I keep saying Jahiliyyah because I'm hinting towards something of what we will be discussing at the conference will come in Germantown. So it's as if I'm tying everything in. So notice I said these are affairs of Jahiliyyah, because that's the name of the book. Affairs of Jahiliyyah. These were from the affairs of Jahiliyyah, these type of beliefs. And the Messenger of Allah came to eradicate and decimate all these beliefs and destroy it from its root. And how he destroyed it from its root was that the Messenger of Allah focused on the belief system of the people by rectifying their minds. Because if the people's hearts are rectified and their minds are rectified, then everything else falls into place. The way the people think, once it's been rectified, then everything else falls into place. In their belief system and in their foundation and how they think and their belief. طيب. So when the Messenger of Allah said in the next narration where we stop, وَلَا طِيَرَةٍ, that there's no evil omens. What is the Messenger of Allah? Is he negating that? He's negating another affair of Jahiliyyah again. He's negating and he's refuting and condemning an affair of Jahiliyyah, which is the belief of evil omens. So it's not negating tiyarah. They do exist. There are beliefs of bad omens, superstitions, myths. They all exist, depending on one's nationality and background, of course. However, what do we say, everyone? The meaning of the narration here of tiyarah is that they do not have any effect. They do not have any effect. And they're from the beliefs, likewise, of the pagans of the past. The belief in superstitions and myths and omens, that they have some type of effect over your life, is also from the affairs of Jahiliyyah that's incumbent upon the Muslim to rid himself of, because they are affairs of polytheism. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Why is evil omens or myths or superstitions a part of affairs, or why are they affairs of polytheism? Because it negates tawakkul. Yanfi at-tawakkul. It negates one's reliance and dependence upon Allah. That's the reason why evil omens are considered polytheism. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Is it clear or is it not clear? It yanfi at-tawakkul wal-i'timad al-khalis ala Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. It negates one's reliance and his trust in Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. So that's the reason why we said what, everyone? This is considered from the affairs of shirk. It's considered from affairs of paganism and idolatry. And it's considered from the affairs of Jahiliyyah. So the Prophet ﷺ also is making a rebuttal. Also said last class, right, everyone? What did I say last class? I said, notice that the Quran is filled with refutations against falsehood and likewise the authentic sunnah. There's no such thing as a correct call except the message of Allah commanded good. Every prophet and messenger commanded the good and forbade the evil. There's no such thing as we're just going to be quiet from certain affairs, especially the most reprehensible and the most dangerous, which is polytheism. There's no correct caller except that he has to call to monotheism and warn against polytheism and speak about it, even if he thinks that his numbers are going to be less or he's not going to have as many followers. Is it clear what I'm saying? Is it clear or not? There's no such thing as I'm just going to not speak about those matters, and rather we'll just speak about, for example, social matters, about marriages, and that's it. There's no way that marriages or the society and families can be rectified unless the foundation is rectified, which is the monotheism of Allah, and the people have a knowledge about their Lord and knowing how to fear their Lord properly. If they actualize that, then they'll have proper mannerism. Once they have proper mannerism with their Lord, they'll have proper mannerism with what? With the creation. But if people have improper mannerism with their Lord, they're not going to have proper mannerism with who? The creation. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So once the people attain full, proper knowledge of their Lord, Tabarak wa Ta'ala, then everything else will fall into place with marriages and social ills and affairs that's connected with what? The social affairs of the people. But as long as you will find a caller that he will not talk about these affairs at all in the name of so-called unifying the Muslims, this is considered a what? An innovated unification. And it stands on something that is absolutely baseless. It's just like a house, or it's just like a tree where they just hover in the air. They don't exist. There's no such thing as branches that they just hover in the air with nothing holding it up. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing as a building without any foundation, where they just hold it up, and if it does, it might stay propped momentarily, then it will eventually collapse. And that's what you'll find that a lot of people in the past, especially in the 90s, with the Abu Usama Dhahabi da'wah, the Khalif, his name was Khalifa Abu Usama Dhahabi. Majority of the people left off the truth because it wasn't built upon any firm foundation. As soon as they fell off, they fell off. A lot of the young youth don't know what I'm speaking about, but people who are involved in the da'wah from the 90s know exactly what I'm speaking about. Because they never spoke on these affairs and made it their primary goal and focus. So when they fell or when they went away, if the people have these foundations deep rooted in their heart, they'll still stand firm and remain steadfast upon what's correct, and will not deviate from what is considered the truth. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Taib. So it says there's no tiyara, there's no evil omens. Evil omens, like we mentioned, it said, what, everyone? The Prophet ﷺ is rebuttaling the affairs of Jahiliyyah with the pagans. That these affairs are baseless. They have no effect over your life. Whether you walk under a ladder or some bird droppings fall on your head, or a black cat crosses your path, or that you married someone on the night of Friday the 13th, and all the other nonsense and superstitions that people believe, and they think it has some type of effect over their life. You understand what I'm saying, everyone? Focus. 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 So that's what the Messenger of Allah laid down the foundation here. He rebutted falsehood here in this hadith. We'll take the opportunity always, brothers and sisters, because we cultivate everyone to teach everyone the proper call so you can know evil callers when you see them and hear them. That's another thing. Because a lot of people will say, see, these are quoting ayat, hadith, but you don't know what type of methodology he's embarking upon in order to properly cultivate, rectify the people. If he's not speaking on none of these affairs, then you know he's an evil caller. I don't care what hadith he quotes and what ayat he quotes. You understand, everyone? Because majority of the callers now, especially these days of YouTube, where there's so many thousands and thousands of people who are on YouTube now, who are so-called mashayikh, as they say, and people of da'wah and all the other nonsense that have now appeared, where the people are confused, where you see all of them, is there not, if not majority of them, 90% of them quote ayat and hadith. Is there anything else they're not going to quote? They're going to quote ayat and hadith, and they're going to sound correct. It's going to sound what? Correct. But in actuality, it's a deception. to cover up what is truly behind it. And it will eventually come out. طيب. So the Prophet ﷺ, after he laid down the word At-Tiyara, what did he say? He says, however, I like what they call Al-Fa'al. Al-Fa'al. Al-Fa'al, everyone, as we said, the meaning of it is what? As the Messenger of Allah himself had explained what it means. He said it means a good word. So that's the meaning of, as they translate roughly, I think, a good omen. But however, what is intended is to be optimistic about a situation, whereas one will what? One will express, or he will show some type of relaxation for maybe one that is facing some type of sadness or grief, or one feeling anxious. So you come to that individual and you just give him a kind word by saying, for example, Akhi, don't worry, everything's going to be all right. Everything's going to be okay. You're going to be fine. No matter what type of affair he's going to embark upon, from a test for school or what have you, or he's nervous about a certain affair, or he's nervous about, for example, going overseas. It's my first time traveling overseas, or whatever type of matter that you might feel anxious about. So you as your brother or sister will come to that individual and now instill in them some type of what? Not only reassurance, but some type of what? Word that will bring some type of ease and relaxation, to relax them. Akhi, you're going to be fine. Don't worry about it. You're going to be good. You're going to be fine. Put your trust in Allah. Everything is going to be fine. And that you give them to some type of bishara or bushra, some glad tidings to make them feel relaxed. That's the meaning of the hadith here, as we said. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? That's the meaning of a good omen, meaning that which will come as a result of it, some type of what? Relaxation, or some type of positivity where a person will be what? Optimistic about a certain situation. And how a person attains being optimistic is by a good word that his brother or his sister might give to them. You might be nervous. And how many times do we have people that come to us and they say a kind word and they bring relaxation to our heart? By a smile, or by saying a kind word, or giving us some type of, a little bit of reassurance that you're going to be good, you're going to be fine, you're going to get through it. Just relax, calm, everything is going to be all right. And alhamdulillah, about these type of experiences, how many times that we have seen that our friends or people who are close or dear to us do this, and it makes the situation a whole lot better. So that's what the Messenger of Allah ﷺ was saying here. He's saying, وَيُعْجِبُنِي الْفَأَلْ. He says a good omen, meaning something that will bring optimism to the situation, or positivity where one will become relaxed and remove him or her's anxiety, or one feeling anxious. Is it clear? That's the meaning of al-kalima at-tayyiba. يظهر عليك بعض الإشكالات. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Gee. No, just about facial expressions. It seemed like you wanted to ask me something. تريد تسألني شيء أو إيش؟ يظهر عليك موضع الإشكالات وما أدري إيش أحتاج أن أجيب عنها حتى أزيل عنك هذا الإشكال وإيش؟ عندك السؤال وماذا؟ ما عندك شيء؟ الله يبارك فيكم حياكم الله بياك. At any rate, so that's what we're saying. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? طيب. So the Prophet ﷺ made this exception, and then at the same time he explained what is that exception by saying a good word. So anything that brings ease to a situation is what the Messenger of Allah is saying here. So I don't want anyone to misunderstand the meaning of al-fa'al here. They think that the Messenger of Allah gave an exception for something polytheistic. That's not the case. So the Messenger of Allah even gave us detail of what he meant by the statement where he said a good word. Is it clear? Like we said, Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah, that he kind of, the great Imam al-Alama, he gave a little more broad explanation of the meaning, which is a little bit, of course you know Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah gives a lot of details, but that what we mentioned is to summarize everything so we can move on to the next statement. طيب. The next narration on the authority of Abu Dawud. I'm sorry, everyone. Before we move on, I said last class we mentioned what is the message of Allah said there's no omens, right everyone? There's no omens. But then he made an exception from those omens that are considered somewhat good. Why did the Messenger of Allah here in this narration give the exception that a good word or what have you, what they call fa'al or good omen, for lack of better words, of course? He gave the exception from omens. Why are they considered, or why are they connected? I mentioned this in the class and I answered it. Number one, ahsant. This is real important. The reason why the Messenger of Allah gave the exception, even though al-fa'al, which is considered a good omen or what have you, is from those omens, they're only connected from the aspect that both of them are from what they call al-masmu'at. They are both heard. That's all. They're both what? Heard. Omens, as we know, what's the definition of omens? Or good or evil omen or what have you? What's the name of, we said the definition is what?
Anything that makes you think bad.
Ahsant. It's a tasha'um, a shu'um. A tasha'um بمرئي أو مسموع أحسنت أو معلوم زمانا أو مكانا أو شخص or شخصا, as we mentioned last class, that the meaning of at-tiyara or tatayyur, as we mentioned last class, it is to believe in some type of evil omen, a tasha'um. And also tasha'um also means pessimistic, from the word shu'um. We'll talk about that later. Tasha'um, to believe in an evil omen by what? Something that is heard, or what? Heard, or seen, or known, as we said last class, time, place, or it could be a person. That's what happened with Musa, in the ayat that we mentioned last class, right everyone? As we said, that from the pagans, they believed that Musa and his followers were evil what? Omens. That they brought this type of catastrophes upon them because of his presence and what he came with the truth. So Musa was what, everyone? Our Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, wa alayhi wa ala nabiyina, yani ala Musa wa ala nabiyina, afdal as-salatu wa tammu taslim. Upon Musa alayhi salatu wassalam, they believed him to be a what? He believed him to be what they call a shu'um, an evil omen. And that's a person and his followers. طيب. Here in this narration, at-tiyara, from the definition is what? Something that is what? Heard. Likewise, a good omen is also something that is what? Something that is heard. That's it. Another thing of why it's considered, or what's the connection? What did we mention last class? Abdullah is the only one who's going to give it here. Tafadal. Another connection is that they're similar to incantations. People said, what do you mean? When a person hears incantation, they'll think, whoa, that must be something that's polytheistic or something, some type of paganistic practice, right? When a person hears incantation. Here, fa'al, when they hear good omen, they think that's a what? Saying it's similar as far as the wording. But when you hear the meaning, it's totally what? It's totally different. As we know, there are ruqa shar'iyya, masmuha. There's what? There's permitted incantations in Islam. As long as it's what, everyone? It's based upon Kitaab and Sunnah, what the Message of Allah taught the people, taught his followers. Right, everyone? طيب. Same thing in regards to al-fa'al. Exact same thing. Al-fa'al is the exact same thing, precisely. How is it the same thing? Because it's similar to what we said, incantations, where the Prophet ﷺ said, اِعْرِضُوا عَلَيَّ رُقَاكُمْ لَا بَأْسَ بِالرُّقَى مَا لَمْ تَكُنْ شِرْكًا. The Prophet ﷺ, what did he mention to say, everyone? He said, show me your incantations. There's no problem with them as long as they're not what? Polytheism. There's no problem with them as long as they're not what? Polytheism. So لا بأس بها أو لا بأس بالرقى ما لم تكن شركا. So اعرضوا علي رقاكم لا بأس بالرقى مَا لَمْ تَكُنْ شِرْكًا. There's nothing wrong with incantations as long as they're not what? Polytheism. So these are the two reasons why al-fa'al is considered from the aspect of omens, that they only share in these two affairs, but in actuality, ultimately they're different as far as what is permissible and what isn't. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? But this is why a person would say, but why did the Messenger of Allah give an exception even though this is considered from evil omens if he was to look at this hadith? They'd be like, they gave the exception. So what's the connection? What's the correlation, as they say? What's the connection? What's the correlation between the two? This is the correlation. What is heard and is similar to incantations. Similar to incantations as far as the meaning, where the Messenger of Allah said incantations, all of them are impermissible except what Allah and His Messenger allowed them to be an exception. Is it clear what I'm saying? As far as in the wording, but in the meaning is totally what? It's totally different. We'll move on. طيب. No, Rashid's just funny, man. He's just رشيد أنت تأتي بالبشارة دائما كلما تتبسم. طيب. Next narration on the authority of Abu Dawood رضي الله عنه, on the authority of Uqbat ibn Amir, no. On the authority of Uqba ibn Amir, the great Sahabi, he says, ذكرت الطيرة عند رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال أحسنها الفأل ولا ترد مسلما فإذا رأى أحدكم ما يكره فليقول اللهم لا يأتي بالحسنات إلا أنت ولا يدفع السيئات إلا أنت ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بك. طيب. On the authority of the narration which is collected in Sunan Abi Dawood, it says بِسَنَدِ الصحيح. Your father Ahl Ilm say that this was a little ghafla from the great Imam rahimahullah, Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Wahab, that this was a type of ghafla. It was a little slip as far as in the authenticity here in this narration. Ultimately, this narration is what? It's weak. Musa. This narration is weak. Matter of fact, read the narration in Sunan Abi Dawood. Read it for me. I want you to read it in English for me. So it says, isnad, what it says with a what? Authentic chain. Does it not say that or not? What does it say? Sahih means authentic. Sahih chain means authentic chain. Is this narration authentic or not? Is it or isn't it? You said, hold on. Is this narration authentic or not? What do you say, Hassan? What did they say? This narration, is this narration authentic or not, everyone? Is it or not? Listen, you'll find a majority of Ahl Ilm say that this narration is weak, it's da'if. Due to the fact that number one, the narration is in actuality on the authority of Urwa. It's not Uqba ibn Amir. The narration is on Urwa ibn Amir. So they find like the great Imam rahimahullah, Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Wahab, it was just a little small minor mistake in this particular place here. And you'll find that Ahl Ilm, you notice that from the truthfulness of Ahl Sunnah, that they stand for the truth and they do not try to They do not try to just say, oh, the Imam, he's still right regardless of what he says. You'll find that they still come behind and they clarify what's the truth. And they have no ta'assub. They have no fanaticism for anyone. Rather, their bughya, or their desire is that the truth be what? Followed. طيب. The great Imam here, rahimahullah, which is a little small minor mistake from him, rahimahullah. It says that the narration in actuality is on the authority of Urwa, not Uqba. On the authority of Urwa not Urwa ibn Zubayr, Urwa ibn Amir. So change that in your books if it's not in there already. Read the footnote. What does it say? Read it for me. Jayyid. You don't have it in your books? Where's your book? You need a chair. Get a chair. I need you to get in a chair. You're using the wall as a pillow today. Call it back in a minute. طيب. Put your book on the table. طيب. Share with him. Share. Sit up. This is what you call another pillow. Now I need you to sit up and focus. All that leaning and reclining and relax. All this knowledge that you're learning right now is the most important knowledge of your life. This knowledge that you're studying right here is greater than math, science, astrology, astronomy, anything you can think of in your whole life that you think is important, this is greater than that. This is what you're studying the Quran. This is all tied in. It's all together. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? طيب. So here in this narration it says, I'll read it for me again, Abdullah, I'm sorry. This is good. Ar-Razzaaq. It's funny that they put Abdul Qadir Ar-Razzaaq. That's really funny. طيب. The narration was declared weak by a lot of the Ai-Imma. From the... Could somebody go outside for me? Hold on for a second. Yeah. Could you just run out? Matter of fact, don't worry about it. So this narration again, everyone, is weak. That's my dinner. This narration was declared weak by the great Imam al-Albani, and also the great Imam Shaykh Ubayd ibn Sulaiman al-Jabiri hafidhullah wa ra'ah also said that the narration is weak. This narration here is weak. It's da'if. Why is it weak, everyone? Because it's been different as far as what? In the aspect of Urwa here being a Sahabi. Is he a Sahabi or not? You'll find from the great Ai-Imma who said he wasn't. From them who said he was. From them who said he wasn't. And the great Imam al-Mizzi, who's from also the students of Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, the great Imam al-Hafiz al-Mizzi said, La suhbata lahu tasih. Him being ascribed to being a companion, there's nothing that is authenticated to establish him being a companion. If that's the case, if this is the case, just as the Ai-Imma has mentioned, this is what you call in hadith mursal. If it's a mursal of a sahabi, then we know this is authentic. But here, you'll find that the majority of A'imma, especially Al-Imam Ahmad, and other than them from the great A'imma, differ as far as him being a sahabi. If it's been established that he is, then the narration is authentic. Because the meaning of the word mursal or irsal in the chain, in the narration, when you hear the word irsal, this is a terminology that is used in science of hadith. Irsal is when someone has been dropped out of the chain. They don't know who it is. That's the meaning of irsal or mursal. Somebody's been dropped out the chain, but they don't know who it is. You understand, everyone? Somebody's been dropped out of the chain of narrators, so they don't know who it is. As we know in science of hadith, I'm sure everyone is familiar, that if it's been established, pay attention everyone, this is very important. If it's been established that the person that was dropped out of the chain is a sahabi, then the chain is still authentic. Why? Even if we don't know who the sahabi is. Once you see sahabi, that's it, khalas. Because all of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ are udul. All the companions of the Prophet ﷺ are considered what? All of them are reliable and trustworthy in their narrations. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has praised all of them by being people of sidq, people of truthfulness and veracity. The people, or the companions of the Prophet ﷺ who narrated upon the Prophet ﷺ, all of them are considered udul. All of them are considered trustworthy and reliable in their narrations. So you'll find in the science of hadith, there's something called mursal as-sahabi. Mursal as-sahabi. Mursal as-sahabi. You writing this down? Or you memorizing? You're just on the relaxation today. You're the youngest out of all of us, and you're relaxing the most. You got a foot in the chair, crossed and everything. طيب, mursal as-sahabi. The meaning of mursal as-sahabi is that the companion was dropped out of the chain, but it's not known which sahabi it is. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? If that's the case, where it was a sahabi who's dropped out of the chain, the narration is yuhmalu ala sihha. The narration is, the chain is still considered to be connected. And it's considered to be what? Authentic. However, if it's now not known, if it's now not known, rather it's been clarified or becomes clear that he's not a sahabi, rather he might be someone else, and it's not known who the individual is. Let's just say, for example, he's not a sahabi. Here, Ahl Ilm is clarifying in this narration that what? It's clarifying in this narration that this individual, is he a sahabi or not? You'll find the majority of them is saying he's not. So is this narration considered from what they call mursal sahabi? No. All right, everyone? Keep in mind that the word irsal in the Arabic language, or mursal, is min qism al-da'f. It's from the aspect of what's considered weak in narrations. That's what will make a isnad or a chain unauthentic. It will make that particular chain weak. That's in its origin. The exception from that is, except that if it's a mursal sahabi, the mursal sahabi is still considered connected. I'll say it again. The word mursal or irsal is from qism al-da'f. Is from the affairs or the narrations that's considered weak in its origin. If you see of Ahl Ilm come and say this chain in this hadith is mursal, know for sure he's saying there's some type of what? Weakness in it. There's weakness in it. I'm not going to get too knee deep into this, because now you're going to get me to another class, which is in hadith, science of hadith. I'm just giving you some extra side benefit to know why this narration here in Kitaab At-Tawheed is considered what? Daif. That's the only reason why I'm mentioning this. Is it clear what I'm saying? طيب. Irsal or mursal is min qism al-da'af. It's from what's considered a weak narration. If you'll find that a alim from Ahl Ilm, from Hadith, for example, you say Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar, from the time of old, and from the Imam of today, from the contemporary scholars of Ahl Ilm, what do you do? The contemporary scholars of Ahl Ilm, from the great Imam al-Albani, if he says, for example, this narration is mursal, he's clearly telling you there's somewhat weakness in it. Is it clear what I'm saying? طيب. However, there's some affairs what they call marasil or mursal. Mursal, that's from what they call mursal as-sahabi. طيب. Let's just say now the chain has someone dropped out of it, but however it's been established that it's a companion. Here is an exception. Still, the chain is still considered what? Connected and authentic. Even though in the origin that the meaning of mursal that is what? Weak. Is it clear what I'm saying? Is it clear what I'm saying or not? So here in this narration, if it was a sahabi that was established in this chain, this narration would be what, everyone? Here in this book of Kitaab At-Tawheed, huh? It would be authentic. Mursal sahabi. Jayyid? If it's been established that it's a sahabi or he was a sahabi. Even if we didn't know the individual. Let's just say that it was that Amir, or let's just say if he was a sahabi, he was totally dropped out the chain. Nobody knows what sahabi he was, or who is it? Who's the sahabi? If it's been clearly established it was a sahabi, khalas, the chain is still authentic regardless. Whether he's been mentioned or not, if it's a sahabi, khalas, done. طيب. However, Ahl Ilm is saying here, he's not a sahabi. You'll find Imam al-Mizzi and other than them. Imam Ahmed mentioned that he's not what? He's not a sahabi. He's not a sahabi that related the hadith. He's someone else. His name was Urwa ibn Amir al-Qurashi. Some of them still say his name. Oh, how did that happen? However, some of them say his name was Juhani. And it was different as far as what? It's been mentioned different as far as him being a what? A sahabi. Rahmakallah. He says, Ibn Hibban mentioned him as being from the thiqat al-tabi'een. But at any rate, whether we mention and say that is what? Saying that he's a sahabi, rather you'll find that the majority of Ahl Ilm saying that he's not. This narration, like we said, is weak. And also you'll find that the great Imam of what was mentioned here, it says, وَلِي أَبِي دَاوُدْ بِسَنَدِ الصَّحِيحِ. I think it mentioned on the other page. Yeah, I'm right. And Abu Dawood بِسَنَدِ الصَّحِيحِ. Even though the narration is weak, it said that the message of Allah mentioned it said that al-tiyarah, that it was mentioned to him, and he said that the best of it is al-fa'al. And he said it should not repel or reject or hold back the Muslim. Then it says a dua. If one of you was to hear what he detests, let him say this dua, O Allah, no one brings good except you, and no one repels it except you, and there's no might and no strength except with what? Except with you. Oh, he put that there. G. طيب. Here in this narration, if you're looking at everyone, it says that tiyarah, or the evil omens, was mentioned with the message of Allah here. He said the best of it is what? The best of it is what? The best of it, show them where we at. The best of it is al-fa'al. And it should not repel a Muslim. What does it mean here? It should not hold back a what? A Muslim. Meaning, of course, if we want to get inside the benefits of this narration, even though the isnad is weak, however, we'll talk about and say that the meaning is no problem with it, inshallah, even though the chain is weak. طيب. He says it should not repel or hold back a Muslim. What does it mean by that? Meaning that none of these beliefs should allow or have any positive or even any negative effect on you. As we said during the time of Jahiliyyah, what did we say, everyone? During the time of the Messenger of Allah, or before the advent of his messengership, alayhi salatu wasalam, people would go outside, about to embark upon their daily affairs. Something they seen or heard would allow them to go right back in their what? House. And close their doors out of fear that something was going to happen. Because either something of a superstition they came across of a person or a statement that they heard, or any type of superstitions that they came across when they were embarking upon setting out for something that would be beneficial either for their religion or for their mundane worldly affairs. Someone might have screamed out to them, Ya khasir. That was from their beliefs. That this type of person that said this, oh, but ya da'i'. You might have heard a person says, oh, a person that's at loss. Upon that, he would go right back in the house. Or upon that, he would shut his business down. Once he heard that type of supplication that someone might have said against him. Meaning of this hadith here, the Prophet ﷺ said, it will not repel you or hold you back from what you want to set out to do. Is it clear what I'm saying? Is it clear? Is it not clear? طيب. However, here in these narrations, you'll find that Ahl Ilm, and this goes with all these other narrations, because these other narrations in this chapter supports its meaning, as we're going to talk about, inshallah. طيب. Every person, of course, or excuse me, I should say every person, but a lot of people who have come out of Jahiliyyah, have come out of affairs of Jahiliyyah, listen to me, Muslim and everyone. A lot of people who come out from Jahiliyyah due to the fact that they have held on to these beliefs from so long that it's been engraved in their blood. Right or wrong? To the point where sometimes if it happens, automatically you might have a reaction and not realize it. You understand? Is it clear or was it not clear? So you'll find that Ahl Ilm say in regards to, if you see something of a superstition that you're used to or acclimated for it happening to you, that it has two types of effects on you. Number one, to the point where it will hold you back from you setting out of what will be beneficial. If it affects you to this point, then this is considered polytheism, shirk. Person walk right back in the house. Why you leave? Why you set out? It's time to work today. No. Something, a black cat came across my path. Or, no. A person with one eye walked out past me and looked at me. All the superstitions are different. Is it clear? Or someone hollered at me, said, Ya da'i'. So someone who's at loss, someone who's not going to prosper today. And as a result of it, you went back in the house, shut your doors, you didn't go out to work. If it reaches this level, to this extent of paranoia, it drove you to the point where you did not set out for your daily affairs. This is what the Messenger of Allah is warning against, and this is polytheism. And this is also considered from the affairs of Jahiliyyah. And this is what the Messenger of Allah is talking about here in this narration specifically. If it reaches to this extent, know for sure this is now affect you in a way where it's made you fall into polytheism. You let something other than Allah control you to the point where you cannot accomplish what will be beneficial for yourself in your mundane or worldly affairs. Is it clear what I'm saying or not, everyone? It says, La taruddu musliman. So that's the first level. The second level is if you might have some type of a little bit of what you feel in yourself of some type of a paranoia. Or some type of whisper, or you might feel in your heart a little anxiety. A little reluctancy within yourself. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Not everyone. Just listen. Some type of reluctancy within yourself. So this second stage, or the second type, is ahwan, is less. It's less. Here in this narration is for the second type, if you want. For the first and the second, of course. But the second type is of a less level. If you get these type of now effect upon yourself where it gives you some type of reluctancy or hesitation in setting out to accomplish a certain affair, these are from the du'as that you can say. Even though the narration is weak, but the meaning is correct. That you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to say what? Asking Him to remove this type of what? Feeling from yourself. Where He says, "Oh Allah, no one brings good except you. No one brings evil or repels it except you. There's no might, no power except with you." Even though this dua, like we said, the chain is weak, but the meaning, inshallah, is correct. Even though, like we said, that the chain, even though has weakness in it. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? It says in the narration where Shaykh Abdurrahman ibn Hassan al-Shaykh, he even mentioned this, where he said, rahimahullah, he said, أي لا تأتي الطيرة بالحسنات ولا تدفع المكروهات بل أنت وحدك لا شريك لك الذي تأتي بالحسنات وتدفع السيئات. والحسنات هنا النعم والسيئات المصائب. To the end of it. ففيه نفي تعليق القلب بغير الله في جلب نفع أو دفع ضر، وهذا هو التوحيد، وهو دعاء مناسب لمن وقع في قلبه شيء من الطيرة، والتصريح بأنها لا تجلب نفعا ولا تدفع ضرا ولا يعد من اعتقدها سفيها مشركا. To the end of it. That's basically what he's saying, that even though the isnad has some da'f in it, but like we said, if this person makes dua, it will, inshallah, it will be an aid to remove what he might come or might take him or enter in his heart of some type of feeling that it has an effect on his life. Because like we said, especially with people who've been acclimated to these matters for long periods of time, it might just happen instinctively. And it does happen to some of the people, especially us that just recently embraced Islam. Right or wrong? Person walk down the street, there's a superstition, believe it, that he used to believe in, he's trying to reject it. It's just an automatic it's like a reflex. You understand what I'm saying, everyone? For those who have had those type of experiences, know what I'm speaking about. Because it's something that you've been doing for years, and now you're trying to rid yourself. So the Prophet ﷺ said here, or he gives some type of remedy that will remove it. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Jayyid. The next narration puts emphasis on what we've been discussing. And we'll stop here, inshallah. The next one, we'll just read it and we'll stop. What? That's not short. It's been going for almost an hour now. It was 20 minutes.
It felt like 20 minutes.
It's been an hour. If you look on the clock, it's been an hour. Huh? It's been an hour. Oh, alhamdulillah, that's good. That's a good thing. Okay, brothers, خليكم معي. طيب, next narration, عبد الله بن مسعود رضي الله عنه مرفوعا, that said, الطيرة شرك. الطيرة شرك. Notice Abdullah bin Mas'ud said, وَمَا مِنَّا إِلَّا. Read it. Matter of fact, now let him read it. I need him to stay with me. Read it. Read the next one. Abdullah bin Mas'ud. A loud voice.
Ibn Mas'ud reported that the Prophet said, Tirada is short. Tirada is short.
Twice. Mm-hmm. Go.
It will not be among us, but Allah will remove it through.
It will not be among us? That's how they translate it? That's wrong. That's ghalat. That's wrong. It was supposed to be translated, there's none from amongst us except, and then he stopped. That's how it's supposed to be translated. What Abdullah bin Mas'ud is mentioning here is saying there's not amongst us who have, except when times of Jahiliyyah, We used to believe this when Islam came. It removed it, but sometimes it might what? Just out of reflex, it's something that you was acclimated to do it so long, except that the actual whispers of it will come. Where it will try to what? Affect you. That's what Abdullah ibn Mas'ud is trying to say here. مَا مِنَّا إِلَّا وَلَهُ حَظٌ مِّنْ هَذَا الشُّعُورِ. It's not from amongst us except those who have some type of portion of this feeling that he might get, or she might get, because it's been engraved in their blood for so long. Is it clear what I'm saying? That's the reason why that translation needs to be corrected. It's not from amongst us. It said there's nobody from amongst us except that he will get this type of what? This type of whisper or this type of feeling. I'm going to read the explanation. Don't worry. Keep reading. I'm sorry.
Okay. But Allah will remove it through
Tawakkul and reliance.
tawakkul. Reported by Abu Dawood and
At-Tirmidhi. At-Tirmidhi. Jayyid.
who said it was sahih, but he quoted the end of it from Ibn Mas'ud.
Jayyid. You'll find that Ahl-Ilm saying, and I'm going to say it just quickly. It says, there's no one from amongst us, وَمَا مِنَّا إِلَّا وَقَدْ وَقَعَ فِي قَلْبِهِ شَيْءٌ مِّن ذَلِكَ. There's no one from amongst us except some of these affairs, what we're discussing now, something of this falls into his heart of that. Is it clear or not? So that's giving you the explanation of the meaning of it. So is that translation correct? It's a little unclear. To me, it's vague.
No, the translation is vague. It's not like
That translation is very vague. Brothers and sisters, trust me, when we went through Al-Aqidat al-Wasitiyya years ago, when we went through it, that Dar es-Salam copy, we picked out maybe 80 mistakes in that book. Maybe 80 to almost 100 mistakes. Every class, you'll find some type of discrepancy in the translation. In the Dar es-Salam book, some of the people were using to follow along with the class. And not only, there was mistakes in it to the point where it will change even the aqidah, the belief of some of the things they wrote inside of the book of how they translated. It even yukhil bil aqidah. Some of the meanings you'll find that it infringed upon what was the correct belief due to the severe errors that they had in the book. So don't find this surprising. Oh, that mistake is in there. What's so surprising about that? You understand? Little small mistakes, especially if the narrator is known from amongst us from Ahlul Sunnah. It's not surprising. Just a little small minor mistakes in the book is no problem. But don't be surprised that it's not mistakes in the translation. So people don't say, whoa, it's like some people are blown away. You understand this? You'll find that we just said here, the great Imam, Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Wahab, had a little slip as far as in certain small minor affairs as far as what we just said. He's an Imam, Ahlul Sunnah. You understand? Right or wrong? Exactly. He's a reviver. He's an Imam. Mujaddid. Ahsant. But little minor errors is still not what? Doesn't affect upon his status. Especially if that's the case with a great alim like himself and his high status. What about a person who's going to translate books? It's all the more reason that they might have some slip-ups. There's no problem with that. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So as far as in regards to the translation, we say that the meaning of it is there's no one from amongst us except that something of this affair will creep or fall into his heart. Not on purpose, but just something of a reflex action or whisper from shaitan. Due to the fact that one's acclimated to these matters and been so-called practicing for so long, it takes some time for it to be what? Removed. You understand? He's memorizing. Is it clear what I'm saying? We'll stop here, inshallah. Stop here for today. Tafadal.
So what if they had it? So they had it in their heart for so long, and they're going to leave. What if they fall back from it, but then do the same act again?
Don't worry about it. I'm explaining in a minute, inshallah. Tafadal. That's going to get. We're going to get into that. That's coming. Ahsant. That's another dua. That's authentic. That dua is authentic. Tafadal. So you saying is it a kind of magic? You mean?
Yeah. In terms of like claiming to have knowledge of other people.
Absolutely. If the person claims to have knowledge of it, absolutely. So all these affairs are tied in with some type of way with what they call tanjim, some type of affairs of magic, some type of shape, form, or fashion. You understand? Tafadhal. Say it again. What about it? What we're saying is that from the methodology of all the prophets and messengers, the methodology of the prophets and the messengers never change as far as in usul, as far as in the foundations. All of them are agreed upon. They're never different in the methodology of any prophet in the foundations whatsoever. And if that's the case, then you're able to distinguish who's an evil caller or a person that's not calling to true rectification or true unification based upon that the methodology that they took to call the people to what was correct is wrong. You understand? And if that's the case, then that call is what? Is incorrect. Well, Ahl Sunnah, we don't care how many ayat and hadith they use. You understand what I'm saying? Because you'll find people out there, due to the fact that Muslims have not, a lot of the, especially the Muslims that have been brought up, it's broke. That the Muslims have not been cultivated properly. A lot of them have not been taught these principles. A lot of Muslims who are upon deviation have not been educated properly. So as soon as they hear a caller, he has a nice ghutra on, he has a nice scarf on his head, he has a nice long beard, and he now starts to speak very eloquently, bring eloquent words, eloquent speech, and he's real soft and nice. So now what comes as a result of it, the people are quick to say, what? Oh, you can't see, he just looks so humble, he just looks so nice, and he just looks like he just wants so much good for the people. Whether or not he intended good or not, that's between him and his Lord. What we look at is whether or not he embarked upon was correct or not. We don't care how many social issues and families he's speaking about. Is he sticking and clinging to the correct methodology of how the prophets embarked upon rectifying their societies or rectifying their people? Does it agree with it or not? Is the man teaching about these affairs starting with what? Teaching the people what monotheism is, what it is, what polytheism is, what's sunnah, what's bid'ah, what is their beliefs, who are they, what are their characteristics, what are their methods? These are all the affairs that all the prophets came with, starting from Nuh all the way up to the last and final prophets, the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. None of their methodologies differ as far as in the foundations. When they first came to their people, they all started with Tawheed. How many ayats you see in the Quran? He says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about Shu'aib, about Sulaiman, about Musa. First thing they called to, U'budullah, la ilaha, U'budullaha, ma lakum min ilahin ghayruh. Worship Allah alone. You have no deity of worship other than Him. So that was their first call. You'll have now callers that will come, and generally they'll speak about affairs that they're non-controversial. They'll start talking about affairs of good, for example, of good mannerism, and they'll shield what they have behind based upon trying to put a front by speaking about these matters. They'll put in your face family matters, how we can stop the divorce rate. That's what they'll start with. So what you started with is clearly opposing what's the foundation of all the prophets. Regardless of whether or not it's part of the religion or not. You still embarked upon a path that is opposition to the methodology of the prophets and when they were calling to rectifying their societies and their people. So we know ultimately what you're doing is still incorrect, and ultimately your call is going to fail. It's going to fail. The majority of the people who do not teach, if not all of the people that don't teach these foundation, these principles of what we're teaching, you'll find that communities are falling into polytheism. They're falling into all different types of perverted beliefs of Islam because they've never been taught or cultivated or educated properly in the foundations of the religion. That's why if you was to go to those masajid, in which I've seen people tell me all the time, we go there to pray and leave, you find that even the people in their conversations, you'll be like, what are you talking about? Talking about racism, they've been talking about how the black man such and such, and they're talking about affairs of racism and polytheism and nationalism, and you're like, whoa, what are y'all being taught here? Anybody teaching you guys properly, educating you properly? This is in every place that never studies these affairs. You'll find that conversations you'll be talking about, and you listen and it's like, whoa. In certain instances, you would think that are you even Muslim? The way they speak in some of their conversations. Even though they have the name Ahmed or the name Khadija, or if some of them might have a thobe and a kufi on, but when the speech what actually materializes is something totally what? Totally different. You understand, everyone? Because it's a clear indication and sign that these people have not been educated properly. They have not. It's a whole lot of places. Matter of fact, it's in all the places that never studied the usul of the Salafis, or usul al-Salafiyya, except you'll find that every community has their portion, if not a full portion of them falling into polytheism and all types of affairs that are innovated or affairs that are in opposition to the religion. That's the reason why I keep emphasizing, I don't care what caller calls to what, as far as him quoting hadith and ayat. If he's not starting with this type of methodology, and if he's not embarking upon clarifying to the people what's tawheed and what's shirk, or what's sunnah, what's bid'ah, and all those matters, that person is like a shaitan akhras. That person is like a silent devil. I don't care how much he smiles in your face. I don't care how much of a scarf he wears over his head and how long his beard is. That person that does not speak about these matters, what we're talking about now, is like a silent devil. He's like a silent devil. It's a shaitan akhras. Sakata an al-haq. Ka-shaitan al-akhras. Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? Next question about the class. Memorizing the day. Anything else? Tafadhal, Hassan.
I had one question. What was the Arabic name for good omen? Like meaning, like you said, a sheikh or a sister would provide another brother or sister.
The meaning of the word fa'al. The meaning of the word fa'al. Fa'al, or what the message of Allah is saying here, is just when any type of situation that you may face is some type of predicament that might bring some tension to yourself, and someone come along and they just relax you by saying a kind word to you. That's what the message of Allah is speaking about here. You say something, akhi, everybody put your trust in Allah, you're going to be fine. You study, no, you're a smart individual, you'll get past it. You're a smart person, inshallah, I know you do fine. That's what the message of Allah is talking about in this narration. Is it clear? Yeah, you just don't do it. That's it. Just don't do it, or you can make this supplication, and it will, inshallah, be an aid for Allah to give you tawfiq so it can remove it from your heart. There's another dua in here that we're going to speak about, because it's two supplications. The next one that we're going to talk about next class, that one is authentic. And those are narrations that helps it be removed from one's heart, or the wasawis, so the whispers that he might get, that one might have due to this affairs being well engraved or well deep rooted in your belief system. Yeah, but the supplication has come. As long as you do not do it, just don't do it. Absolutely. Exactly. Tafadhal.
So you're saying if you split it, you still can't split it?
No, you don't do it. Don't do it at all. What do you mean just to get by someone? If your intent was just to get by someone, that has nothing to do with speaking about. That's permissible. You split the pole because someone is in your way. That's something different. It has nothing to do with shirk. It has nothing to do with Tawheed and shirk. Just the meaning of mursal as-sahabi is when the sahabi or the actual companion has been dropped out the chain. That's called mursal sahabi. Now, if it's just called mursal, that in itself is weak. But the mursal is when someone has been dropped out the chain. Mursal is when someone, either sahabi or if it's just keep it right now. Just someone has been dropped out the chain. Just keep it for now. I don't want to get into too much details of it. Tafadal Ahmed, you raised your hand. You raised your hand a couple of minutes ago? I seen you go like this. I answered though? Oh. Optimistic means to bring optimism about the situation. When you say something nice to a person, say something nice to her. Anything else, Musa? I'll stop here. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. You guys ask me questions soon.